All right, guys. I have Kobe with me. Kobe, this is our Saturday team call. Everyone gets on to plug in and get some training. Excited about today is because we have one person that was on is Alethea. She's a brand new agent on, and she's been doing, final expense sales and helped 30 families her first month.
Hmm.
And then you're 3 weeks in, you're doing IUL sales and you helped 50 families in your first month, right? And I think a lot of people, the reason I'm excited and to get to talk to you and getting to talk to her today was I think a lot of people see agents that have been around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years, and they're like, oh, well, like they've been around for a long time, so it makes sense they're having success. But you're in your first month doing, 50, helping 50 families a month. Like that's a big number. And it took me probably a year and a half to be able to work up to be able to sell that much. So you're having a ton of success right away. I'd love you to, kind of talk about how you found Family First Life, what stood out to you, and then we can talk about some of the stuff that that you've done to have such success right away.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you for having me. It's funny, we were talking before, like
Hmm.
uh I was watching like all your stuff like a month ago. So it's just funny to like be on this so fast. But I found Family First Life honestly just through social media. Like
Yeah.
just just like looking into different things like to see what would interest me. And I saw how crazy the opportunity was. And it was honestly like I kind of didn't believe it at first. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, you're telling me because you see so many people that come in and just have so much instant success, and then you talk about the opportunities on the back end, and it's like, nah, this can't be this can't be real, right?
Right.
But then you kind of think about a lot of the big guys and just like the social media people that uh, have kind of these big brands. A lot of them were in the insurance industry or financial
Yeah.
services in some aspect of it. So once I realized that, I was like, okay, let me just try this and see what works.
Yeah, man. I've talked to a lot of people, and we've referenced Erin a few times on this on our trainings. She was the chief revenue officer for Ethos, who talked about like getting into sales after she graduated Harvard Business School. But like a lot of people I've met who ran big companies or worked in big companies, they all started in sales, and that's because sales is where all the revenue is generated, right? So it helps them really understand if your goal is to end up running a big company or just be a really good salesperson, like sales is where the money's made. So you understand where the revenue comes from, which I think is a really cool perspective to have. So before this too, I think your backstory is kind of cool. So you played Division I basketball. Where did you play at?
I played at Niagara, so I played at
Okay.
two Division I school or two Division II schools.
Mhm.
Transferred twice, and then I ended up at Niagara University. Yeah.
And then after that, you can go through, but you played in the G League, you played overseas for a little bit. And we were talking right before this, and you were like, I went through all this stuff, and then I just didn't really, it wasn't as fulfilling as you thought it was going to be, right? And I imagine when you were 18, you didn't think you'd be selling insurance. So like, what was that journey like going from like playing in the G League and then, wanting to play in the NBA, I would assume, and then going like,
Mhm.
no, I need to do something where I can make, a real, financial, impact for myself and my family. Like, what was that process like?
Yeah. So it was actually funny how I got to the G League anyway. That's kind of a long story, but being in G League was a good experience. I was only there for, a cup of coffee, so it
Yeah.
was only a couple games, so it wasn't nothing crazy. But it was funny looking and sitting on the bench. I don't know if you played 2K before, but
Yeah.
when you're like in the my player mode and you're like looking and you're watching the court, that's kind of like what it felt like. It was funny. Um, but yeah, I played there for a couple games, went and played in another league, and then that next season I played in Portugal.
Mhm.
And yeah, we were talking before. It's like my whole life goal was to be a professional basketball player. Like that's all I was doing. Basketball was, yeah, I went to school. I actually majored in computer information systems,
Mhm.
but I always say that I pretty much just majored in basketball because
Right.
I didn't really care. That was just kind of like a backup. Like, okay, I know I can, make a decent salary, in the computer cybersecurity world. But I was waiting and I finally got there, got to Portugal. I was away from my family and everything. And I was just like, dang, this is not what I thought this was going to be like. And uh, yeah, kind of like, man, it kind of had me lost for a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
ended up coming back home, went to a few different businesses, and then yeah, stumbled across, insurance and family first life specifically. And I was just like, man, let me try this sales thing though, because I never sold anything at all,
Yeah.
like, ever.
Well, what did you do between playing basketball and then sales? Like, did you have a couple jobs in between there, or you just tried to start other businesses, or what was that process?
Yeah, so my main thing, I was doing Amazon FBA, if you heard of it before. It was
Yeah,
like wholesale. And I was doing pretty well. It was going pretty well, but I had ran into an incident with a product, and they like what I want to say, like, limited my account.
got
And
it.
within that process, so I realized, I was like, dang, like, they have all the control. Even though, it's a business, it's kind of like a business in a box in a sense. Like, they already have all the systems in place, kind of similar to this in a way,
Hmm.
except, we have control here. Like, there was, anything happened, they can, hold your money, they can hold your products. So I realized that I needed like something that has some control over.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to make a shift.
And then, like you said, we were talking before this because I was curious how we ended up, here. We ended up on Jake's team, and you said you were kind of getting started. You dialed for Final Expense a while back. You're like, dude, I don't really, this isn't really what I want to do. And then you saw Jake talking about, doing IUL business. Why? And I think it's important too. Like probably 5 years ago, 3 years ago, even we did Final Expense and term insurance pretty much exclusively, right?
Mhm.
And then as a company now, like I feel really good about going, like, if you want to sell Final Expense, I can plug you in. Term, I can plug you in. Mortgage protection, you want to sell IULs, annuities, like we do everything now in the life space.
Mhm.
Which is cool because it gives us a lot of flexibility as a company. But you were like, no, I don't necessarily want to do this one, but I want to sell like IUL business. Like, what stood out about that was more appealing to you, that you were like, I want to jump full in and learn that business, and this is the product line that I want to sell here.
Yeah, I dialed Final Expense for like a day. It was so boring to me. Like, the
Yeah,
conversation was so boring. I'm just like, man, like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Nothing against it. I see people do well doing all three, really: mortgage
yeah.
protection, Final Expense, IUL. I just like the IUL conversation in general.
Mhm.
Just talking about retirement and helping people with retirement, especially, I think people got privy to it after like 2020.
Yeah.
And actually, even well, I'll say someone close to me um, had pretty much all their retirement in a 401k.
Mhm.
And the issue is, once you're about to retire, it's only a couple years from retirement, and the stock market drops 50%, let's just say, you lose half of your retirement. Now you're like
Yeah.
in a pickle, in a scramble. So I kind of seen that firsthand, and that kind of like made me want to learn about IULs, see how I can kind of help annuities, and kind of play some defense as well, because I think that's important that people don't really understand.
Yeah, that one thing that was cool. I met a CEO of an insurance carrier, and
Mhm.
they told me, they were like, "Hey, the insurance industry is awesome. As far as IUL, whole life, annuities, it's amazing because it's the only industry where you can provide guarantees to your clients, like guaranteed floor to your clients. Everything else that people do, and people should do everything, right? Like people should have 401ks and IRAs and stocks and bonds and annuities, and like people should have a well-rounded retirement." And I asked him, I was like, got it. Like, you own a company that sells, IUL and whole life. And he was like, don't get it wrong, because he's like 50. He's like, I have stocks and equities, and I have my 401k through work, and I have all these things, but it's a really good part of a well-rounded retirement.
Mhm.
And IUL offers, the part I think that people forget about sometimes, or not forget about, but they gloss over, is it does have life insurance, which is important, and it has living benefits, right? I was
Mhm.
on with a newer agent earlier today, and they were like, how do I explain, like, why they have to pay the cost of insurance? I was like, no, you're looking at it like it's a bad thing. Like, they get $500,000 life insurance with this, and they're going to build cash value.
Mhm.
And if they get sick and have a chronic critical terminal illness, then they have, the living benefits get turned on, and they can access that money too. So I think that's part of it, where people, like, the tax-free retirement part is awesome, the floor is awesome, but people also forget to talk about the other parts of the policy, right?
Mhm. It's like a Swiss Army knife, really.
Exactly.
You can kind of, you know, take on the retirement aspect of it. You could take on the death benefit, leave something to your family, and it's
Yep.
really like the only, like you said, it's like the only way you can kind of have some type of living benefits. Um,
Yeah.
so it kind of like tackles all three right there, and that alone should. I mean, I feel like the product sells itself. you can explain it like simply,
Yeah.
uh, you're really just looking for the right person in the right mindset, and I feel like it's kind of like an easy connection.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like you talked about just figuring out the right person and the right mindset looking into that. So to do 50 families your first 3 weeks, like what are you doing? How many leads are you getting per week? And
Mhm.
then what does your schedule look like to be able to, put up the kind of numbers you've been able to put up right away? Because it's not like you just roll out of bed and are working an hour a day and making a bunch of money, right? Like give everyone like how much you're investing in the leads and then what your work schedule looks like.
So I'm doing 1,000 a week in leads.
Mhm.
I talked to Jake. I told him before I even started, I told him what my goals were. And this was honestly like my goal for the first month really was 40 families. And
Mhm.
we laid out like, okay, what do I need to do to get this 40 families? And we calculated it was like, okay, a thousand in lead spend a week. Then we talked schedule wise. And I mean, so my whole schedule, I wake up early. I've always woke up early to work out. So to me, I wake up, do some meditation,
Mhm.
pray, go to the gym, work out, come back here, eat, and then I'm dialing at 8 o'clock to. It depends. It depends
Yeah.
on how many people I get a chance to talk to. So I'll say, in a general sense, I'm dialing like 8 to around like 9 p.m. But
Yeah.
obviously, there's like breaks in between because I'm trying to catch people before work. I'm trying to catch them at lunch, and I'm trying to catch people after work. Because IUL is different than final expense. Most people in
Mhm.
final expense are probably retired, right? So they have a whole bunch of time. The people with IULs are still working. They own a business or they have a job. So these people don't have too much time. So it's like more like windows of time. Obviously, you're dialing throughout the day, but I'm trying to catch them. So I'll go Eastern, then I'll shift to Pacific, or Central, then Pacific
Yeah.
for the morning. Try to catch them before work, then cycle back through lunchtime, cycle back through after. And I'm East Coast, so Pacific's not getting off until like maybe 7, 8. So if I
Yeah.
really want to dial, California leads, then I'm up at night. So
Right.
it's
And
all good.
I'm glad you said that because I think a lot of people are like, oh, and I think some of the marketing towards working in life insurance is like, oh, this is the easiest business that there is in the world. And really it's a low barrier entry way to make a lot of money and to do really well. But like you're working 13 hours a day. Like that's what you have to do, especially when you're new, to be able to have the type of level of success. And I'm glad you said that. I think some people are like, oh yeah, I'm just good. You're like, man, I'm just working. I'm working hard. I'm making a lot of phone calls. I'm calling people all day long. And that's why I'm doing well. Do you work at all on the weekends? Do you make calls on Saturday or Sunday at all to try to get with people who are working?
I probably should do more. I
Yeah.
do Saturday. I try to like cut it in half, um,
Mhm.
to not like stress myself out because I know it's kind of like hard hours. I got to be honest with myself. I'm a human, so
Yeah.
I get some blockage in there as well. Um, but yeah, like you said, I want it to be like top funnel heavy, and
Mhm.
specifically because I know I was starting out, I didn't have the skills. I wanted to do what what other these top guys are doing, but I didn't really know what to do. So in my head,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let me just power through this. Let me buy as many leads as I can comfortably, like that I can afford, and let me dial as much as I can because it's a skill gap at the end of the day. You're gonna have to get comfortable talking on the phones, right? And
Right.
so you can either, you know, dial 100 people or talk to 100 people over 6 months, or you could talk to 100 people in a week. And so I'm like,
Mhm.
I want to learn as fast as possible. So I have to call and talk to all these people so I can develop my skills. And so that was kind of my approach to it.
Yeah. What does that initial conversation typically look like? You get someone on the phone, like, oh, yep, my name's Zach, my information's correct. How do you go into the appointment and, in a very simple sense, explain, what the IUL is and see if they'd be a good candidate for that? Because I think, and we were mentioning this right before we started here, but a lot of people think that it's going to be some super complicated product. And I think a lot of agents think that it's really complicated when really it's not. It's just a form of life insurance, right? But what is that, so yeah, say you call me, you verify my information, like, yeah, that's me. How do you transition into that phone call to make sure that I understand what we're talking about and make sure I'm a good client for an IUL?
Right. So just to preference it, I'm dialing IUL leads.
Yep.
So these people already know that, what I'm here to talk about, right? And so I think people have to understand that at what point in the sales process we're at. You got to understand, like, these people know for the most part they have a problem, right?
Yep.
Two, they know that IULs could be the solution. You know what I mean? So our job is really just to bridge the gap. So the
Mhm.
first thing I want to know is, like, what's your problem, right? And so I have a two questions I mainly ask. The first one I will say, like, is what got you interested in the product to want to fill out the information?
Mhm.
Right there, you pretty much already know, like, why, what I mean, why they're here, right?
Yeah. And they
So
typically say like, I wanted retirement, or I wanted to be able to invest in a business, or I wanted to have some life insurance, or I wanted living benefits. Like one of the pieces of an IUL is usually the answer for those people, right?
exactly. And so
Yeah.
you just play off that the rest of the script, honestly. It's like,
So
okay,
say I go like, hey man, I was looking for something to help me with retirement. I don't have a lot set up, but and I saw I maybe could use the IUL or whatever it's called to help me with retirement. I think that's what I'm looking for.
okay. And then I would go and say, did you have like a 401k, IRA, real estate? What's kind of your investments right now?
I have a little 401k through work, but not enough to help me retire when I need to retire.
Okay. Okay. And how's that 401k doing for you?
I haven't checked the numbers really. I've had it for like 5 or 6 years, but it's probably not too. I don't really know the specifics, but it's probably not all that much in there. I don't think.
Yeah, and I would probably just make a joke like, uh, yeah, I try to not to look at my investment portfolio either.
Yeah.
I'll say, okay, so do you have like any life insurance like in your name, or is it mainly through your job?
My job has some insurance for me, but nothing outside of my work. I don't have anything outside of work.
Okay. And so right there, you kind of already know that this is a good client, right? They don't
Hmm.
have enough for insurance, or they don't have enough for retirement. They don't have any kind of fixed defensive plays, and they don't have life insurance, right? So I'm just playing off that, like, okay, from there, then I send them my information so they know who I'm talking to. So I have just a business card that I'll just text over to them, and
Hmm.
then from there, I'll just explain what an IUL is. So I'll just say, like, there's three ways really to structure an IUL. I'll say there's a protection focus, there's a retirement focus, and then there's kind of a mix of both. I'll say the protection focus is more so for our clients that's a little bit older, just trying to leave something for the family. The retirement is, for people that's looking to have that minimum death benefit allowed by the IRS to consider it still a tax-free product, a life insurance product, and have that max cash growth.
Hmm.
The third is a mix of both. You kind of following me so far? Be
Yes,
like, yeah,
sir. Yeah.
right. And then I'll explain deep. I can kind of just play off of how it sounds. If they understand it, you can tell if they understand it. If they
Yeah.
don't, you can kind of like dive a little deeper, like, okay, this is how it works as far as like the index, how you can participate in the upside without the downside, and then we kind of like go from there. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that's super important what you just said is like there's some people like when I buy stuff, dude, I want a little bit of information. I typically buy stuff quickly, right? Like I'm like, cool, I got it. I looked up online. I know what I want. Like, get me that, right?
Mhm.
Like when we bought a house, when we moved to Austin, like the first day we saw 5 houses. I was like, I like the second one. Like we're buying that one, right? But then there's other people, right, who will go like, no, I need to see every house and like all the school districts and all this and that and the property and all that stuff. And like you said, you have to pay attention to see like someone like me, you'd go through just the basics and I'd go, sounds good, man. I want to spend $1,000 a month. That fits my budget. And if you oversell me, I get annoyed. I'm like, dude, I don't care about the index. Can we just get this done? I'm busy.
Mhm.
Whereas there may be other people who are like, no, okay, so how does indexing work and how does this work? And those people you want to give more information to, right? I
Mhm.
think it's a really good point. I haven't heard anyone train on that in a long time, but you're doing a really good job of actively listening and then giving them as much information as they need and not bombarding them or giving them some sales pitch, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a guy, or how, yeah, 2 days ago, I think. I
Mhm.
was on a call with him for 2.5 hours, bro.
Yeah.
And he was question, 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 question. And I was fine with it because if you want to know everything about it, I will tell you everything you want to know about it. But if you're,
Mhm.
like you said, if you're just ready to go, then, you know, then we're going to the illustration in the app right away. Like, there's no reason to set up an appointment if you know and you can feel that they're ready to go, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Just, hey, you got
And
extra 20
and
minutes to
you,
fill this
yeah.
out.
I would say you've developed a good base of knowledge just from talking to you. I can tell you have a good knowledge base for doing this 3 weeks. Like, what did you do for the people who are like, okay, I want to learn IUL? What are some tips you can give them for where you did a lot of the research and where you learned how to sell them and understand, how to answer the client's objections?
Yeah, so I would say Jake helped me out with that a lot, first of all.
Hmm.
Um, and then two, the course that in Family First, I think it's Family First Life School. That
Yeah,
pretty
the
much,
boot camp.
yeah, it tells you like everything you really need to know. Like I think a
Yeah,
lot of people like overthink it. It's not that deep. Like we know what the product is. It's whole life essentially with um, better growth aspect to it, right?
yeah,
And so that's why I kind of structure the way my conversation goes. Is like, okay, I want to know why you're here. Once I know why you're here, then I can play off of that and okay, this is your problem. This is the solution to your problem, right?
yeah,
And so as far as the objections go, it's really as long as you can push the sale forward with a question, you know what I mean? I think you continue to go. So like
yeah.
a common objection I'll get up front, I'll say, so my initial opening line is like, hey Zach, I'll be like,
Hmm.
hey Zach, it's Kobi Nwandu. I'm just following up with your IUL request you made. Is this something you're still interested in? And they'll either say,
Yeah, I think so.
right. And
Or
then
maybe. Yeah,
right. And then
yeah,
I'll just go straight into it. I was like, okay, cool. So I'll either say, how much do you know about it or what you're interested in? If
hmm,
they say, like, yes, but I don't have time right now, you have to explore if this is like a smoke screen or do they really not have time? You know what I
yeah,
mean? And you would say that, like, okay, I just want to make sure, like, this is something important to you because I don't want to, go back and forth and if it's not something that interests you, we're not wasting time. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely interested, but I don't have time right now. Okay.
hmm,
Well, this was just going to be a quick 5-minute conversation just to see if I can help you in any way. And then I'll just keep going forward.
hmm.
I usually like to do like, I'll say like two. If they say it like 2, 3 times, I'm like, okay, maybe you can kind of hear, like you said, you can kind of hear it too. Like, okay,
Yeah,
I know if you're at work and you're busy, but I also know if you're just sitting back and watching, some television because,
right.
you know, I'm trying to figure out if you're like actually interested in this. That's why it's my
Yeah,
first question. Like, is this important to you? Or are you kind of like, you know, kicking tires? Like, what are you trying to do? That's what
right.
I want to know. You know what I mean?
When the way you're approaching it is so not salesy, you're like, yeah, I know you're busy, my job's just to really figure out what we can even do for you. Are you able to talk for 5 minutes right now? A lot of people think this is gonna take an hour. So I have 5 minutes, I can go through everything with you and get you off the phone. And they're like, oh, okay, sounds good, right? So awesome, man. Well, hey, we'll definitely have you on, do more training. I don't want to take up everyone's day, but dude, the other thing is, everything you're doing, you're very calm, you're a good listener. And the same thing Alethea said. She said she's from day one was spending $1,000 a week on leads and bumped it up to 1,500. Yours, same thing. New agent success right away. $1,000 plus a week on leads. I mean, you're just investing in your business and you believe in yourself and the system. So, dude, I appreciate everything you're doing, how fast you're growing, and looking forward to watching this year. And like you said, you're gonna be on that cruise. I have no doubt about it, my man.
Yeah, I need to appreciate it. The last thing
All
I'll
right,
say
thank.
is
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
the system already is in place. Like Family First Life has already built everything that you need to do. Just don't overthink it. Just go into it. Because
Hmm.
if you're trying to dip your toe, then you're gonna get dip your toe results, right? If you're
Yeah,
going all into it, then you're gonna get going all into it results, and you'll be working quicker. So I think a lot of people it's just
yeah.
a mental thing. Once you break those barriers, then you'll be good to go. I'm confident in it for sure.
Yeah, dude, that's what I've been telling everyone lately. Because they're like, well, can I like do it part time, like kind of play around with it? And I was like, look, if you treat this like a profession, it'll pay you like you're professional. If you treat it like a hobby, it's probably going to cost you money like any other hobby would. Like you go golf on the weekends, you spend a couple $100 on a round, you get some drinks and some food and whatever, and you spend $500. If you treat this like a hobby and you buy some leads and work for 2 hours, like you're probably going to lose money long term. So treat it like a profession if you want to be paid like that, right? And I think that's exactly what you're saying, man. So.
100%.
Dude, I know you're just getting started and I think you're gonna have a big year. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you too, Zach.